Hello, colleagues, and welcome to another episode of DINCast, where this time we're going to be exploring all things entrepreneurial and social purpose. And I'm joined today by Bruce Walker, who's the co-founder and CEO of Futurex. Welcome along, Bruce.
Thanks so much, Ian, for having me. I'm excited to be here and looking forward to having a good chat.
Absolutely, and I'm really keen to sort of hear about your journey and all the work that you do with startups and things like that. But I'm conscious, although we've done a couple of sessions together, a lot of people may not have heard of yourself or even Futurex. So do you want to just introduce yourself to our members?
Yeah, definitely. So Futurex is a education, media, events company that operates particularly now all over the world. So we've got people who tune in to participate in our work, whether it's our events, our programs, or our community platform from all over the world. But we're based in Edinburgh and have been since the very beginning. But our background is that we spent numerous years, my co-founder and I, we actually worked in different parts of the world. I spent a lot of time in Silicon Valley, in the US, Europe, and a bit in China, whereas Zoe spent a lot of time working in Greece, in India, in the UK, and when we came together, we really felt like if we can take the experience of how to scale a company, but build in how to do that in an impactful way, one that is conscious of people, conscious of the planet, but is still innovative and sustainable, then that's really going to be the future of business. And so that's what we do.
And that's a really interesting piece, particularly in the circumstances which we find ourselves in terms of we've got a chance now to sort of revisit business purpose. But let me sort of just take you back, because I think you started your first business at 17, which is a fantastic age. I wouldn't even know what a business was when I was sort of 17. So you sort of just take us back to that point in time and what you've learned as an entrepreneur, sort of building and failing and learning from setting up business.
So I started when I was 17 because I took part in Young Enterprise Scotland, which was a company program in school which helped you basically start a company. And that gave me the chance to explore without worrying about whether I was going to fail or not, a chance to try something. And I think that's why these initiatives are really, really important. And so it was when I was in about 18 that I decided I want to keep doing this. I'd had some experience and success when I was at school, and I thought this is definitely something I want to do much more of. What I've learned is that I spent the first 5 years just completely on listening mode. And I just went and traveled around the world and somehow convinced executives and entrepreneurs in some massive companies to meet with me and tell me about what they do and what they do well and which bits are tricky, and get an understanding of some of the best practice from around the world. And then I always was passionate about doing what we can to look after people. I feel like I'm a naturally quite empathetic person, but I hadn't really thought about how that translates into business practice. I thought that's a thing you can do on the side rather than that's what the business is. But it wasn't until I started meeting other purpose-driven entrepreneurs and understanding what they were doing that I really realized that actually the secret to success and what I was seeing behind some of the biggest companies in the world are people who recognize that people are our biggest and most important resource. And so when you invest in people and you look after people, they will build you a fantastic company. It's really not rocket science. Behind me here, there's numerous books that talk about this. It is out there in the world. And yet there still seemed to be a bit of skepticism around, does this truly lead to big companies? And that's been my mission, is to say, yes, absolutely it can do. And I want to help everyone use the principles of purpose to build scalable companies.
And so do you ever sort of personally feel, wow, I just wonder what it would have been like working in a corporate environment or working in a big business at all?
So before I started my business, I was a magician, believe it or not. So when I was 16, I used to be a magician, and I would go around to restaurants and bars and things. So even from then, I was doing my own thing. And very quickly, I just realized that my approach was not the standard approach to things. I'm very impatient, and so I just didn't want to wait. And I also felt like I could email. So when I was at school, I sent an email to Alan Sugar, Lord Sugar, and started having a dialogue back and forth with Alan Sugar's team. And I thought, I'm never going back to being the person who has to do the, start at the bottom. I'm just going to go straight to the top. And that's just been what I've done the whole time.
Yeah, it's quite often, just asking people how much you actually get back around that. So what would you define as an entrepreneur? Because a lot of people would look at you and say, "Oh, you're a classic sort of entrepreneur around that." But entrepreneurial approaches come in different forms. So what would you define an entrepreneur as?
So I definitely see that entrepreneurial behavior can be universal. Anyone can learn and explore and train themselves to become more entrepreneurial. I think that to be an entrepreneur, in my mind, requires taking risk. So it requires putting something on the line. To be entrepreneurial is a little bit broader than that. I think that's thinking in a creative way, that's problem solving. And I think that all organizations can develop entrepreneurial thinking and entrepreneurs. But to be an entrepreneur, I think you do need to put something on the line. You need to risk something, because it's only really then you've got skin in the game, and you know whether it's going to, you're going to work your socks off to make it succeed.
And I suppose one of the challenges that you'll sort of come across is in those early days, you were able to move at speed. There was just yourself, and you could take decisions very, very quickly. But as Futurex grows, or those companies who you were going out and talking to, it does seem that actually you can lose some of that sort of momentum as you grow and scale. So I just wondered, is it possible, in your view, to remain an entrepreneurial culture and organization as you become more successful and grow?
I think that you absolutely can. I think that it requires a tremendous amount of work to make sure that you've created the processes and systems to allow for entrepreneurial behavior. It's largely around, do you have an environment where you listen to people? Because that's a big part of it, is that, are you providing trust? Do you trust your people? Do you trust them? I mean, do you truly believe that they show up every day and they try to do the best thing? And that sometimes we all make mistakes, but is their intention to do the best thing? And I think if you create that kind of psychological safety where people are able to make mistakes, are able to question and challenge things, then you can still keep that entrepreneurial culture as you scale, because it actually encourages people to move quickly, to take risks, to realize that they're valued. I think the challenge is, if you move as you grow from having entrepreneurial leaders to having lots of managers, I think that's a very, very different mindset that you're creating. And I would encourage in all our, so I don't really refer to anyone in our team as a manager. I refer to them as a leader always. And I think that what we should be encouraging is every individual can be a leader within their own life, because leadership is how you approach problems rather than whether you've got people below you who report to you. So I think if you remember that kind of that energy as you approach it, then absolutely you can continue to create entrepreneurial teams. And lots of people have done that, managed to grow big companies. And the final thing I would say is that keeping teams small. Great things are achieved by small teams, I think. And I think that managing to keep teams small who communicate with each other, then that's one of the ways in which you can keep creativity and entrepreneurship in the core of your business.
So as part of Futurex, you engage massively with the startup community, and it's an area that DIN actually sort of focuses on as well. But one of the problems that we start to come across with particularly with startups, particularly where they've got some really good ideas or some solutions, is that ability to move from the piloting stage to actually sort of scaling up. So I see lots and lots of startups come in, being asked, "Oh, right, okay, well, can you come and build this for us? Can we come and test this for us?" But then for whatever reason, they don't seem able to sort of go on to the next stage. Is there any sort of advice or insights you can give to big organizations who work with startups that can actually, I suppose, help them get beyond that stage?
So I think that in the very beginning, it's about survival. And it's really about, I've got this great concept, I want to bring it to life. And so you're very, there's a lot of hustling going on. There's lots of kind of piecing things together. And I think that is absolutely the energy that's required to get a startup off the ground. But exactly as you said, there comes a point when if you want to scale up, then there's good reason that companies around the world have practices and procedures and processes, because that's what makes something scalable. And that's, I think, the next stage, that once you've got a bit of proof of concept, once you've got customers who are validating the process, once you're starting to get lots of regular feedback, then you need to think, well, how do I productize this? How do I productize this service, this process for dealing with a challenge? And that's all the bits that I think you need to start to introduce to ensure that you, the business owner, can step back, and that someone can come in and follow a procedure and process. And it's challenging, it's time consuming. Sometimes you think, where am I going to find the time to write all these processes? But one of the biggest things I see in startups is this time cost fallacy, which is that it's quicker not to do it and just keep doing what I'm doing today, but it costs you so much more time in the long run. So thinking about investing your time wisely and building a process, which means you don't need to revisit that process, every week. You can visit every year, every 6 months or whatever. But moving from that appreciation that it can't just be you're going to have to build systems and processes. And I think that to answer your question about how big companies can support with that, is that they've got processes. And I think I've got this sign here behind me from Tony Chocolonely. And one of the things I really like about Tony Chocolonely is that they are all about slave-free chocolate, and they share their processes with the industry. They're not trying to keep it a secret as to their principle for manufacturing. They're sharing it with what would otherwise be seen as competitors. So I think big companies can feel confident about saying, this is what we do. Maybe there's a process you could learn and adapt and share knowledge, because that's what will strengthen and build a much stronger economy.
And so turning to another sort of value that underpins what Futurex does is about sort of ethical purpose and sort of, leaving the planet in a better way than what you've sort of founded from your activities. So how is it possible to sort of make a profit to pay the bills when you are having to, tackle such other big issues around social purpose?
So I'd frame that in an entirely different way. I would say to you, how is it that we've ever created a system where we make money from destroying the planet and not treating the labor market properly? It seems mad, really, that we've ever done it in the other way. And I think that that's just a bit of mindset of saying, when we treat people well, then well includes a well-paying job, dignity at work, trust, and that has a massive ripple effect in society. So, if someone works for me and I treat them poorly, well, then they go home and they feel rubbish, and then that has a knock-on effect with the people that they live with and the people they interact with, and so on and so forth. The ripple effects of treating your people badly is astronomical. The impact of listening to people and treating them with respect is also got a massive positive ripple effect. So that's number one. You're able to attract the best talent and critically keep the best people for your business. So even if you're a cynic about the reasons for doing it, there are lots of data points which show that if you do these things, then you're actually going to be a more robust business. I also think increasingly, if you communicate how you operate as a business, so more transparency, more authenticity, then that's what customers want too. It's not rocket science. You and I feel the same way about businesses every day, that we go into the shops and we'll see someone, and if we know their story, we're more likely to want to spend our money with them. And so I think companies sharing what they do well and how they do it, then that is going to, in the future, and now, today, right now, that those companies are growing faster. I think B Corp companies grow 28 times faster than the average company. So the evidence suggests that those who prioritize people and the planet are going to grow faster, and actually they're going to be the most successful companies of our future.
So obviously, as I say, you work with lots and lots of companies of sort of various different sizes. I mean, are there any particular examples you'd want to sort of share where Futurex has helped some of these businesses achieve some of their social purpose that we can share with listeners?
Sure. I mean, there's lots of examples. I mean, I suppose it's everyone from, we've had a company called Hey Girls, who's been part of our ecosystem and spoken at lots of our events as well. Their mission was to end period poverty. So providing, it's a buy one, give one. When you buy a sanitary product, they would give one. So they're a fantastic example of a company that makes money, gives free products to people who need them, and also their product just solves a problem for people. So that's one example. Then we've also had people who are in the tech space and are building lots of med tech companies. There's another organization who's actually done really, really well throughout the pandemic, which is around remote delivery of prescriptions. So like a pharmacy delivery business. And really what we do is, we had a founders call just the other week with our members, and we were sharing best practice on, say, like ethical recruitment. How do you find people who are both passionate about your mission, but also really care about, or also have the skills that and experience you need? And how do you find that balance? And one of the things that we do is we just hold that conversation and extract best practice and experiences from other people. And it's really about bringing out what people already know. We're often just there as that kind of facilitator.
And I suppose in terms of these corporate leaders that you're working with, their whole business operations have been impacted over the last sort of 12 months. So I just wondered, from your conversations you're having with your alumni and the members that you engage with, what are the biggest challenges that these leaders are now facing as we hopefully start to emerge from the pandemic?
I think what is universally being felt at the moment is a kind of a drain of mental capacity. I think that is the challenge at the moment. I think that it's actually that people are willing to work, want to work, but that it is becoming more and more exhausting to do so. And I think that is universally across the board a challenge that I'm seeing. So I think that when we talk about the future of work, then we're not really going to know what the future, everyone's talking about, what will offices be like? Well, we'll not really know until we start seeing what the hybrid looks like and feels like, and whether that works. I would say that's one of the big challenges at the moment. My feedback to that would be that, or my advice for that is that, to just continue to listen to people and make sure that you're hearing people, that you're responding to the challenges that your people are sharing with you, and be really human about this problem. What you feel is likely similar to what I feel, and if you've got additional challenges in your life, so have I probably. And it's just really emphasize the fact that to get through this, we're going to have to look after each other. And I think that coming out of this, we're going to see significantly more innovation around access, inclusivity, and environmental responsibility. Every company is going to have to think about, the actions they take and whether they can mitigate that.
And sort of, I suppose that leads on to sort of a final sort of question, in terms of, you've shared a lot of examples from your personal journey with us, but if you were leaving sort of leaders working in the social housing space with sort of one thought about how to be more entrepreneurial, how to think or behave more entrepreneurial, drawn on your personal experiences, what would you share with them?
I think that you need to make sure you really broaden your horizon. So you take feedback and insight from a variety of different places. So, for example, when I've got a couple of books right here in front of me, some of them are business books, some of them are like philosophy books, some of them are about spirituality, some of them about scaling your company. The idea is that entrepreneurship is about taking, in my mind, lots of different disparate ideas and putting them together and seeing how you can form something, little nodes of information that may already exist out there, and seeing how do we repackage this, or how do we do this in a slightly different way? How do we continue to reduce the barriers to people who can't participate? And why can't they participate? Is it something that is happening accidentally, or is it something that we've actually blocking, on purpose or not? I think, for example, last year for us, on the back of the Black Lives Matter movement and George Floyd's death, is we were confronted with, are we doing enough to make sure that we have diverse representation across our events? And up until that point, we'd probably thought we were doing enough. And then it was suddenly an awareness that there's so much more we could do. But what we need to do is set the intention that we will address this. And it was as simple as making sure that we had 30% of all speakers were going to be from a BAME background. And you know what? Not surprising. As soon as we set the commitment, it was very, very easy for us to achieve. And so I think that's the thing, is think big and think that there's always a solution to the problem out there.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Bruce. I've really enjoyed sort of this sort of brief chat with yourselves. I think you've shared so many interesting insights and that with us this afternoon. I wish you all the very best in the continued success of Futurex. Hopefully, we'll get some DIN members along to some of your summits, and they can start to engage with the wider startup community there. Thank you very much for your time.
Excellent. My pleasure, Ian. Thanks for having me.